All right. All right. Good evening. It is 5:15 in the afternoon. I can imagine that everybody's had a fairly stressful day. All things considering, we're in the middle of some really unprecedented times, and I'm looking out my window and I see rain clouds and storms. I think the metaphor is probably appropriate that the entire world, but most specifically, the city of Kyle and the greater Kyle area are undergoing a trying time. And I wanted to take this opportunity to come on to the Facebook and talk about the work that we've been putting in behind the scenes, trying to make sure that our community is safe and healthy, and also that our business community is very well taken care of. So behind me here is our Mayor Pro Tem, Rick Coach. On the stream, I have our Library Director, Paul Phelan, our Assistant City Manager, James Earp. They're both going to be available to take questions. Also, our Police Chief is going to be joining in a minute. Looks like Captain Hernandez, the number 2 in command, is also going to be here. We're going to be going through and discussing some of the protocols that we're putting in place. And we should have an opportunity to collect feedback. As Facebook comments are coming in, our IT director, Matt Dawson, is going to be moderating those comments and putting them into a separate feed that I will have access to, as well as the other guests that you can see on your screen. So that will help you. That will help us answer some questions. Please do be patient. I probably will not get to a question answering portion until we've had a chance to try to fully explain and go over what changes are going to be taking place in the city of Kyle. I'd like to start by just giving you a recap of what has taken place just today. I know many of those in the community have probably seen and interacted with the city of Kyle, members of Hays County, and our Representative Zwiener, Senator Campbell. You've been watching on the news with announcements coming down by the minute from the CDC, the federal government, state level government, and the further this is, the further along, and the more this has, the coronavirus has turned into a crisis. The more we have realized at a local level that probably the most important thing that we can do is focus on our community and making sure that the city and our school district, we are doing the work necessary to provide a great deal of clarity about what life is going to be like over the next few weeks in our community. So this morning, I started with a video conference call using Ring Central with several of the pastors in our local community. I believe we had about 15 people on that call. It was an encouraging time because so many of our local pastors have just an incredible heart for this community. And it was great to hear from them what they're thinking, how they're feeling, and to discuss with them how the changes that we are rolling out now are going to affect our community, and in particular focusing on those who are elderly among us and those who are food insecure, coming up with creative ways to try to work together. That was a very, very encouraging meeting. About 2:00 this afternoon, I had a similar meeting with our business community. We had a little over 80 people in the Ring Central meeting. We had a great many of our local businesses represented. And if you were watching this stream and you weren't able to be a part of that, the meeting was recorded, and we are going to make that available to you. But the discussion that took place, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about in the next few minutes was discussed in great detail with the business community, because when you're talking about limiting mass gatherings, local businesses, churches, our movie theater, daycares, local gyms, the impact is going to be great. And it's been very encouraging to watch our community up till this point fully rise to the occasion. I've had conversations with our business owners about their business being significantly challenged as a result of this, of these changes that are taking place. And without fail, the business community in Kyle stepped up. They said, what can we do? How can we help? Everyone generally wanted to get on the same page and make sure that we were responding as a community, as opposed to a lot of different individuals. And we realized at some point yesterday that probably the most important thing we can do at City Hall is make sure that the transition that we make in our services, going from being what has historically been designed to pull people together, turning that into a much more of a virtual environment where meetings are taking place virtually. That has just been something that we felt like was important for us to work out internally. So we have had, just with myself, but also amongst staff, just countless meetings virtually, morning, noon, and night, trying to develop clear guidelines for how we are going to manage our own safety and our own health, and then also how we are going to still provide a high level of service to our residents. Because I think that whatever we are going to ask our local community to do, we need to be the ones demonstrating by example. And our staff has just been phenomenally helpful in this time. All hands on deck. What can we do? Some people getting out of their comfort zone, learning how to use virtual software like what we're demonstrating here. It's not necessarily easy to get your mind around it, but how grateful are we that such technology exists and we still have the ability to interact with a lot of different groups of people and with our community in particular. So I'm going to now go over the main changes that we've been working to implement and tell you a little bit about that. Number one is basically at this time, I'm going to be declaring the city of Kyle a disaster. I'm going to be declaring a disaster in the city of Kyle. And what that means is that, number one, we have much more open access to resources coming down from the federal government. But number two, it allows for us to quickly and swiftly change rules within the city of Kyle that are custom tailored towards meeting the needs of those who are going to be impacted by the coronavirus, which in this case is every single person in this city. So the announcement of that and the details of that are being put out on cityofkyle.com/COVID. That's cityofkyle.com/COVID. That's being published right now. So if you go to that website, that information will be published there. It will be updated over the course of the next few days as we gain more clarity than where we are right now. Starting 8 a.m. tomorrow is when these rules are going to take effect. So what that means is that we're going to be talking about restaurants, we're going to be talking about bars, the movie theater, daycares, regular offices, all of what are the implications of that, parks, and those changes we're going to be rolling out overnight. And we want to give, in particular, our business community the opportunity to work up to adopting these rules. We obviously need those rules to be adopted swiftly, which is why the deadline is going to be 8 a.m. But we very intentionally, once we knew we wanted to get ahead of this and make broad and sweeping changes in the city of Kyle, instead of just immediately throwing out rules, we decided to wait, take a breath, collect ourselves, engage stakeholders, think about the ramifications of what we are saying, and make sure that we get as much consensus as is possible as we work through delivering out these rules. So The first thing that I would like to talk about is the limitation on gatherings. We are going to establish a rule, not a recommendation, but a rule in the city of Kyle that no more than 10 people may be gathered in any spot in our city until April 5th. All of the rules that we are implementing will expire on April 5th and must be ratified by the city council because the changes are being made through executive powers granted to the mayor in times of an emergency. So within the next week, we will be finding a creative way to bring the council together so that the council will have an opportunity to review these changes and ratify them. That being said, I've been in contact with our city council as much as possible over the last really 72 hours. And that group has been as engaged as any council could be. And I'm very, very thankful for their heartbeat, their leadership in the community, and their encouragement to me to make sure that I take these changes seriously and that we do that we do right by our community in protecting ourselves from the coronavirus. So tomorrow, our city offices will be closed. City Hall will be closed to the public, the facility itself. Our library will be closed. Our public works building will be closed. Our police department in certain ways will be closed. I'll let Captain speak more to the processes that are being put in place with our police department. We are asking and are putting into the ordinance a limitation on the ways that restaurants can interact with the public. For one, we are going to prohibit indoor dining in the city of Kyle. And I know that it's very difficult for me to even say that because the implications of what I'm saying are incredible. But at the same time, we have been working with our restaurant owners and our business communities to find creative ways for those businesses to remain open. And so we've been talking with Ilario's, we've been talking with Texas Pie Company, Aviator Pizza just came out with a curbside program, and Rick just went and bought me some, so I'll show you. This is Aviator Pizza. Aviator Pizza established the policies essentially that we are putting into place. That we showed up, Rick showed up to curbside to pick up, and the pizza came with a big smile on, big happy sign on it, and just the entrepreneurial spirit has to be more alive in our restaurant owners and our business community than ever before. So my challenge to myself and to all of us who are trying to earn a living in the city of Kyle is to exercise absolutely as much creativity as you can while following these guidelines that are being put into place to protect our residents and to protect our community from further harm. So so there, obviously, when we rolled out and discussed the changes to the business community around 2 o'clock this afternoon, we got a lot of feedback. Everyone has been sending emails, Facebook messages. I haven't been able to respond to the majority of them, but I've been monitoring them as best as I can, as well as staff who is helping me with the policies that we're putting into place. And that feedback has been just incredibly helpful. So I want to go through some of the provisions and give you a sense of what this gathering ordinance means. So let me pull up. Number one, it's going to be exempted. The organizations that are going to be exempted from this ordinance: grocery stores, gas stations, medical facilities, including like chiropractors, veterinary offices. They're going to be exempted from these changes. Our outdoor construction sites are going to be exempted. And then obviously any facilities and operations within the city of Kyle that are underneath other jurisdictions will be exempted. So for example, Hasty ISD will be exempted from this, and whatever they're doing is going that, they have their own governmental structure and will be able to communicate with you as they have been now for days and weeks. Daycares and gymnasiums / workout facilities. This has probably been the most common question that I have received over the course of the last 24 hours. And what we have decided is that daycares and gymnasiums may remain open. However, no more than 5 children will be allowed in any room at any point in time, and any daycare facility will have a maximum of 20 children allowed into that building. So no more than 5 can be in a room at a time. Maximum will be 20 children. And the same basic principle will be applied to workout facilities and indoor gymnasiums. This is all pertaining to indoors. No more than 5 people per room with a maximum of 20 people in any given workout facility. We tried to think of the most concise way that we could communicate that would be difficult to misinterpret, or so that folks wouldn't necessarily have to constantly be asking questions. So in the case of daycares, no more than 5 children per room, maximum of 20 children in any daycare facility, effective 8 a.m. tomorrow. Gymnasiums, workout facilities, no more than 5 per room, facility maximum of 20. Evo. We decided with Evo that because we only have one movie theater, and obviously Regal Cinemas and other movie theaters are shutting down completely. We had discussions about that, and we just realized that we think there is a way to keep Evo open without shutting it down completely. So we have been working with Mitchell Roberts, the CEO of Evo, this afternoon to craft a policy that would allow for people to feel safe in the movie theater. And so that policy and all of its details will be on the website, but the primary points are going to be that they can only sell tickets where people are 6 feet apart. So they're going to space out the tickets for groups of people, must maintain separation. We're going to allow the bowling alley to remain open, but there are going to be several policies put in place as far as how you get your bowling ball, how many spaces between lanes and seating, and sanitation practices that Evo has agreed to, which will allow for us to have that facility still open. Their restaurant will follow every restaurant's rules. There will be no dining at Evo. Their arcade will be closed. We're still working out exactly what the policy might be for the concession stand. That will be something that we announce really overnight as we can, or into tomorrow as we flesh out the details. But the points that I've just shared are going to be adopted in this proclamation so that Evo can feel, so that it can have the ability to proceed while the city can maintain assurances that there will be a cleanliness and safety standard met at Evo. Restaurants, food services, all indoor dining areas are going to be closed. Patio dining will be allowed. Families may sit together in an outdoor space at a restaurant. However, we decided to have the tables. The tables are going to need to be situated such that 6 feet of separation is maintained between parties at all times. So what that means is if that you're a restaurant owner with outdoor patio space, you're going to need to rearrange your patio space to ensure that people are 6 feet apart. We have also suspended the rules relating to outdoor seating, and these rules will take effect. And what that means is that restaurants with sidewalks out front will be allowed to have patio furniture out there, or outdoor seating, whereas historically maybe they wouldn't have been allowed to. What we want our restaurant owners to focus on is entrepreneurially pursuing great online ordering and takeout, and in particular, carry out, or what's the dine-in? What do you call it? Curbside services for the restaurants, and the seating area. What we're looking for is a demonstration that you are making sure that people stay 6 feet apart from other parties. All right. All right. So I'm going to take that moment to take a breath, and I'm going to let Paul Phelan. Paul is, he's not on the stream right now. Chief, you're up. Talk about some of the protocols that we've been putting together for our police department.
Absolutely. So the first thing is that our citizens will continue to see police services. They will see routine patrols through the neighborhood, and they will continue to see an increased patrol in our business district. The only thing we may shift some of our calls that will allow our officers to handle those by telephone, for those officers to make those calls and deal with those in that way. I think they'll see a higher visibility because we've asked our officers to make sure that they're visible in the community. And then outside of that, we're going to be keenly aware of the high priority areas. We've got some large shopping centers which are attracting large attention, especially in the morning. So we have officers present there. I have to say that everybody's been behaving themselves and acting perfectly. We've had a very calm citizenry as we go through the shopping process in the mornings. But our officers are going to just try to do business as normal with increased visibility, and we may handle some calls by phone that otherwise might have an officer just show up at a doorstep. We have implemented, obviously, all the normal safety procedures that the CDC has recommended. You may see an officer wearing gloves, just as a safety precaution. You may see them keep their social distancing when talking to people or maybe taking a report. The things that everybody's seen from the CDC. From a standpoint of the police station itself, we have a phone in the lobby, and when people do come into the facility, instead of approaching the front window, they're going to be directed to the phone that's on the wall, and they'll be able to have communication with staff on the inside of the building, and then we'll direct the appropriate staff to either meet with them or to handle that call by telephone as well.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Next, we're going to bring in Paul Phelan to talk about some of the changes in library.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And is my audio coming through okay? It's a little garbled on my end, but we okay?
No, you sound great.
Fantastic. So some of the steps that we're taking to respond to the crisis is, first of all, I want all the citizens to know that we renewed all of your items until April the 5th. So if you don't want to get out and be, getting into public and being around other individuals, don't worry about it. If you get an overdue notice, just disregard it. So every item that you have will be renewed to April 5th. And then we're going to have a grace period on that as well. In terms of services that we're going to provide, we're going to have a service beginning tomorrow morning that will run during regular library hours. So we're open from 10 to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 10 to 6 on Friday, and 10 to 4 on Saturdays. And during those entire hours, we will be offering a service called KPL Curbside. And what that means is you'll be able to call into the library. So while the library will be closed along with all the other facilities, okay, but you will be able to either call in on our phone number, send an email in to our main account, which is just circulation@cityofkyle.com, or you can go into your account, for those of you that use that, and you can actually reserve an item through there. And once you do that, we will actually check your item out to you and bring it out to the east side of the building. There's a little courtyard area there where we do many of our programs. There's actually a little window there, and we'll have plenty of signage. So those items will be available for pickup, and that's right on the east side of the building, right along Scott Street. So, and there's actually parking right along there as well, curbside parking. So you can come in and pick up your items. So we will be continuing to check out books. Now, there will be a 3-item limit per person because we anticipate that may be a little difficult to get everybody, but we will certainly do that for you. We will also, for emergency situations, so for have access to the internet and may need to, for example, utilize the internet for government services. It could be some sort of government benefits. And we're talking in emergency situations. We will have a laptop available outside that we can do emergency printing for things like that. So if you absolutely need something like that, and you can certainly come over there and we will fix you up. Our book drops are located on the west side of the building, but we will be taking books on the east side as well. Public, no. The books that you're getting, we are sanitizing those books as we get them. We are quarantining those books for up to 3+ days. Come in, making sure that we keep them back there a few days and sanitize them. So hopefully those books and items that we give you will be clean and safe to take into your home. A couple other items. I would encourage our citizens right now to think about using our online services. So with your library card, you can access ebooks 24/7 from your home, right through your computer or through your phone. And there is an app called the Libby app. All of this information is on our website, but it's a free download. It's called Libby, Libby. iPhone, Androids, whatever. You can go in. It's a free app. Download it. And through that, you can access our Overdrive consortium database, which we have just thousands and thousands of bestseller books, audio books, and different things like that. On our website, just by going to, the easiest way to get there is you can just Google Kyle Library, and it's gonna, that's gonna be the first thing that pops up. You can go to our website to looking at our ebooks online and audiobooks. We have another service there called RB Digital, which are audio books. We also have an entire compendium of databases. Just imagine Chilton manuals, do-it-yourself databases on all different kinds of projects, articles. There's a great database there called Health Complete, probably one of the largest databases on health-related issues. Just go in and look at all kinds of information from a variety of sources. The division as well. And I would just say, so also, won't be having people get inside to get. So you might say, well, my car's just say that we will we'll renew those cards for you for a month over the phone. Just call us and let us know. And in order to sign into that, the number, which usually defaults to the last 6 numbers on your phone number. Trouble with that, just call us on the phone during operation. Help sign in and make sure you get going. But I would like to reiterate.
I think Paul was breaking up a little bit there. So I'm going to go back over a couple of these questions that are coming in and that I'm being made aware of. So some will non-grocery, Jennifer stores, will non-grocery stores be closed? The answer is no. We're not closing any businesses. Retail, where you have a traditional retail experience, those stores will remain open. The primary limitations are on gatherings of people. So if you're going to an establishment like Target or a Kohl's, you may continue to do so. We do recommend following all the guidelines of the CDC in terms of practicing, social distancing, cleaning your hands and sanitizing. The primary reason for the conversation about Evo is that Evo is something that is a very distinct category. We want to ensure that we are following the absolute standards and recommendations of the CDC. But Evo, I believe in the way that they are establishing their policy and agreeing to be bound by that policy, is going to set up some protocols that I think we can live with as a community. Same thing with the daycare. There have been conversations: what do we shut them down or do completely? But at the same time, our children are still here, and there are certain folks who are going to need daycare and are going to really, really struggle with this. So we're trying to find a way to allow for them to stay open while maintaining the strictest standards set forth by the CDC, which is why the policy of 5 children per room and no more than 20 per facility was crafted. In our opinion, this will allow for daycare type establishments, which can include obviously daycares from home. They must continue. We don't have a choice. Our children are going to have to be taken care of. And so we felt like these rules will allow for that to continue. But the reality is we don't know exactly how to go about all of this. But what we do know is that if we stay in lockstep with the recommendations of the CDC, that we're going to be in a good place. And we also know that it's important to take decisive action. I certainly know that it's going to be challenging for everyone to agree on all of these things. I certainly have lost some sleep over figuring out what steps to take and what actions are appropriate. Every single action that we take to limit a business comes with a tremendous amount of pain, I think, for myself and everyone who is responsible for making those decisions. And so it's a challenge, to be sure. We are still working with the Rail House in particular because they're a unique establishment that has a lot of outdoor space, but we want to make sure that that space is properly utilized. And so as of right now, they're operating under the assumption that they're not going to be able to allow for gatherings of any kind, even on their patio area. And we will be working to potentially work out some kind of solution to allow a very limited number of people to gather outdoors. Just like our other restaurants, we are working to allow for outdoor patio areas. What we're trying to find are creative is my sound still breaking up? Sound good? What we're trying to find are creative ways to allow for us to continue to operate. So if a daycare has, let's say 50 kids that need to use the facilities, maybe there's a way for those caregivers and those children to be matched up in different facilities, separating them out and quarantining. We want to give you as much flexibility as you can to continue to operate while also maintaining those strict safety guidelines. So I'm going to read a couple more questions. Parks Division. Our parks are going to remain open. We are adding sanitizing stations to our bathrooms to allow for people to still have access to park bathrooms. We feel like that is important. And honestly, the outdoor park is one of the areas where we feel like that it is okay for people to go and to take walks. But with that said, we're going to be closing and roping off all of the playground equipment so that the children in particular who are visiting these parks are going to have to play in the open areas as opposed to at the playground equipment. HEB is exempted from the ordinance. They have their own policies and rules in place, and we are allowing them to operate freely from city oversight. We are exempting HEB. Wedding venues. So we have a few event venues. We have hotels with meeting spaces. We have Gemstone Palace, Texas Old Town. Texas Old Town technically is not in the city limits, so they will be following the county procedures that are being announced this evening. And they will also be limited to 50 people, I believe, per what the county regulations are saying. My encouragement, and I've already received notice that quite a few folks are canceling their events. my encouragement to anyone who is preparing to have an event at Texas Old Town to cancel that event and find some other way to conduct their wedding, or potentially being creative. So it's certainly a challenge for our events facilities, but at this point in time, I don't believe that there's really any clear path forward for indoor events to take place in any real capacity. So the limitation of 10 does apply to our events facilities like Gemstone Palace. And obviously our hotels that have gathering spaces, that those hotels will not be allowed to have 10 or more people there. So now I'm going to bring in our assistant city manager, if he's still here, James Earp, and add him back to the stream. And James, do you have anything to add?
As far as the businesses are considered, I really don't think so. I mean, generally the rule of thumb that we're trying to apply in most instances is the 10 people. We are definitely encouraging the entrepreneurial spirit for folks to consider ways to work within these guidelines, so that way we minimize the amount of gathering. And in this particular time, I think the city and the council are showing leadership in the fact that maybe rules and such that have been in place in the past that have limited or given folks less ability to be able to do things with flexibility. We're considering to waive those requirements to open up other possibilities. We don't have all the answers right now, but we're definitely thinking through all of this at the same time as it's coming down the pipeline. So as far as the businesses are considered, probably not anything else. If you want me to do an update on the COVID itself, I can do that whenever the time is appropriate.
All right, thanks, James. I saw a question: can small salons remain operating, Kyle? The answer is yes. The 10 person rule will still require be enforced for salons. So you'll need to try to figure out how to maintain the rules and operate as best as you can, but you will be limited by that 10 person rule. Offices an office space, cubicles, it's 10 person per gathering space. So if you have an office in the city of Kyle, this does not apply to you. If throughout the building there are more than 10 people, that's fine. What we're talking about here are gathering places. So events and no more gatherings of no more than 10 people, but traditional office environments are not contemplated here in this policy. So dental offices, dental offices are exempted completely. They're a medical building. But if a dental office wasn't a dental and was just some other kind of business or office space, they would still be allowed to function. The rule of 10 would still apply to them, but it's not 10 people in an entire office. It's 10 people per room. All right, any chief or captain, you guys have anything that you want to add at this time? Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone and their willingness to join us on this live stream. It's quite nerve-wracking to talk through these things with the public, but I feel like it's my responsibility to do so. And I'm honestly, just as I've said at the beginning of this stream, just incredibly thankful for all the hard work that our staff has put together, in particular working on putting together protocols that they're going to follow for themselves in order to set a good example for the community, identifying which positions and groups of staff are critical, and coming up with even more stringent rules for those groups in our staff. And my commitment to you, as you hopefully can see with this Facebook broadcast, is that as difficult and challenging as it is, I'm going to stand in front of the community and engage you. And I believe that that's the only way for us to get through this, and that is together and with a lot of honesty and humility, understanding that I don't have all the answers. This is, obviously very unprecedented, but I believe that the right people are in place in this city, with our council, with our staff, and with all of the other jurisdictions in our region. While it is not easy to make these decisions, the most important thing I think that we can do is maintain open communication and have transparent discussions, because that's going to limit any missteps, and it's going to create the maximum amount of opportunity that we have. I also wanted to say that while April 5th is the deadline that we have established, it is probably good for the community to think about the likelihood that deadline will be extended as we approach it. We don't know what the future holds, which is why we didn't go too far into the future. But we are establishing April 5th primarily as a check-in point at this point in time. So the policies, the social distancing practices, learning and utilizing technology to the very best of your ability to help you communicate, those are going to be very important practices to put in place for your own lives. And we also as a community need to be very cognizant of the food insecure, as well as the elderly in our population, and making sure that we do the best that we can. As I mentioned at the beginning of this stream, I'm very thankful for the pastors who I met with this morning and their encouragement and their willingness to collaborate together. It was something we've kind of thought about for a long time, is how do we get all the different faith-based organizations together and collaborating in times of crisis. And sure enough, these organizations are rising to the occasion, and we're going to be adding more to that consortium of volunteers and leaders in our community over the course of the coming weeks. My commitment also is to continue having those meetings. So the meeting that we had earlier today with over 80 of our local business owners, we are going to continue having those meetings and continue having that dialogue with them so that we can receive feedback to understand what the effect of these policies is on each and every person in the community. So I saw some questions on testing. I don't know if James might be the best person to talk about what our testing capacity is and how many cases, or just what you know as it relates to COVID-19 in the city of Phelan and Hays County.
Sure, Mayor. So right now, the last update that I saw, that there are 3 cases in Hays County. What they're asking for and the advice that's being given as far as testing goes is that there's a limited number of tests available for folks that are exhibiting the symptoms. So what they don't want to have happen is for people who are feeling ill to go to the ER to look for a test, or to try and go find a test because you feel sick. There are specific protocols that the CDC has issued that are being followed by the healthcare providers at this point in time, which have to do with particular screening, answering questionnaires, and determining whether or not you're significantly at risk. But the symptoms that are different about COVID versus the regular flu or some of the other illnesses that are circulating this time of year is the shortness of breath. So if you have fever, if you feel ill, and in addition to that, you also have shortness of breath, then that means that you are a candidate for being considered for COVID screening. The way that you go about doing screening at this point in time, again, everyone I think is starting to realize that the needle on this it moves a lot. So things that were true 2 days ago aren't true today anymore. So, but as of right now, if you are exhibiting those symptoms, the first thing that you do is contact your healthcare provider and tell them that you are exhibiting those symptoms. Each healthcare provider that you would choose to use has their own protocol that they're following right now. They will probably ask you specific questions, then they will more than likely schedule some sort of a consultation with you. That may be in person, it may be over the phone. If they identify you as meeting the qualifications to receive the COVID screening, then they will arrange for that screening with you. Those have been happening in drive-by setups where you drive up and they give you the test, or they swab you. They take the swab back, and then they send you home for quarantine until the results are back in. Most of the folks that end up at the hospital at this point in time are ending up at the hospital because of complications, specifically around the respiratory type items. I'm not a health official. For those of you that are listening, I'm the assistant city manager, but I've been receiving all the briefings. So I'm not speaking as a health director, but I'm just telling you what the information that's been passed to us has been. So if there winds up being a widely available test for COVID, that information would be pushed out by the health department of Hays County and or the medical facilities such as Seton Hospital or CTMC or any of the other regional health facilities that are in the area, up to and including Baylor, Scott and White, and the others, the Austin Regional Clinic, so on and so forth. If you are tested positive for COVID-19, then generally speaking, what they're doing at this point in time is having you self-quarantine at home. They're checking on you daily or multiple times throughout the day to get vitals and to check in on you to see how you're doing. Most of the cases are mild or not severe. About 5% of the cases end up being critical. So for the most part, they're trying to divert away the folks who don't need to be in the hospital to be able to be medicated. All they can do right now is essentially medicate the symptoms. There's no obvious cure. I think we all are aware of that. That shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. So they are treating the symptoms and helping the folks, get through this treatment cycle. Everything that's being put in place, all of these protocols about not gathering, about not having our kids in school, about not having our kids in daycare and big groups, all of that is about slowing down the spread. COVID-19 operates a little bit differently than some of the other viruses that we've seen. You can be sick or have COVID-19 and be contagious and be asymptomatic where you have no symptoms and be spreading that virus. And that is part of the reason that there's that 14-day window for incubation periods. So that makes it more dangerous in the sense that it can spread very quickly and rapidly and exponentially if someone is walking around as a carrier who has the COVID-19 and just isn't aware. So all of these protocols are being put in place in order to slow down the spread. Just like the flu and other viruses that come, the COVID-19's here, it probably is going to be something that we live with. It's just that this first time that it's coming through is significant, and we want to limit the amount of folks that are all being exposed at the same time. If you have elderly or people who are at risk, maybe they have pulmonary issues or other issues that make them more significantly at risk, we just advise you to be extremely careful with them and with their any type of exposures. The hand washing is very important with this. The hand mask the facial masks are being said that they're not as effective for this. This is mostly hand washing, hand touching your mouth, touching your eyes. The thing about the virus is once it's outside of your body, it does not seem to live very long, maybe 3 days to 4 days outside the body on surfaces is what we're being told. So that's why sanitizing regularly helps. Also, the things that might be in your business or you might be engaging with, like your debit card or paper money, if any of those types of things or those services can hold the virus for a short period of time at least. So this original 14 to 21 day windows to try and push try to push us out of winter and into more of a spring-like setting where there's more sunlight, and more sunlight then in turn tends to help curtail the spread of these type of viruses. So we really hope that all this information is helpful to you. If you are looking for the policies that we've been talking about, those are available on the city website, cityofkyle.com/COVID, COVID. There's also a banner at the top of the City of Kyle webpage that directs you there in case you can't remember the link. I'll be happy to answer any questions or cover anything I might have missed, but that's all I have.
All right. Thanks, Chief. I'm just waiting to see if any more questions come in through the feed that need to be answered, or if there's anything that I haven't covered. I appreciate the audience that we've had, those tuning in who are interested to get that feedback. I don't see any more questions coming up on our internal feed, so hopefully I've been able to cover a lot. I do want to communicate the importance of going to cityofkyle.com/COVID, COVID, to get a lot more detail as far as exactly what this policy is going to mean. Obviously, I'm aware that there are a great many questions. There's a reason why we're delaying it until tomorrow. We will do the very best that we can to respond to each and every person who's trying to figure out what this means for them. Hopefully, the language on the website will help answer a lot of those questions as you review it. But with that, I invited our one of our police chaplains, Paul Valdez. He is going to give some concluding remarks and conclude with a prayer for our city. And then at the conclusion of his prayer, the stream will end. So thank you very much for your participation today.
While we're waiting for Chaplain, there's a question about indoor construction sites. Mayor, did you want to address that?
We can talk about it. I don't want to just give an answer on that one off the fly. I need to have that discussion with staff, and then we'll get an answer to that. We'll get clarity. I did want to say that we're working on putting together a sort of a feed where, a bulletin essentially or a forum where people can come and ask their questions and get official city answers, and that those questions can be answered and publicized. We will let you know as soon as we get that. Our intention is to get that put together very soon. All right, Paul, do you want to try again?
Sure. Can you hear me? Hello? 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 So sorry. Can't hear me.
His audio is really low on my end. Are y'all able to hear him okay?
How about now? Okay.
Yeah, I can't hear the chaplain. I can't hear Paul.
All right. Well, I know Pastor Valdez and many other pastors' hearts, and I appreciate the willingness to come forward and offer the remarks. It's okay. We're going to be all right as a community. It's just incredibly important that we stay positive, and while at the same time realizing that the next period of time for all of our lives is going to be challenging. So I'm making plans with my family. Those plans are obviously quite different than the plans we had. I know that there are a lot of folks that are trying to figure this out simultaneously with us. And so we're in this together. We're in this as a community. And so we're gonna get through it. I have a lot of confidence. I have confidence in our city because of the people that I've gotten to know over the last several years. We have some fantastic leaders. We have some fully engaged residents. We have sacrificial, hardworking business owners, and in particular, the community that we have just generally and powerfully cares for each other. And so because of that, I know that we're going to make it. So stay tuned. I'll be coming back. I'll be having more of these types of broadcasts to give folks the opportunity to give me their feedback. And I'll be reading and thinking about every single one of those comments to try to make sure that as we move forward, we're making the best decisions that are possible and are communicating in the absolute most transparent and efficient way that we're able to. So thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.